on in charge.
It's not.
Never done it. Oh, boy. Come back tomorrow.
Let the mayor know, bring some batteries.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the WPCC meeting for the reading of the 2022 annual report. And I'll start off by introducing myself in my capacity. I am Dan Gary, and I am Ward 6 Councilman and also Chair for the WPCC for Team Lewis. Now, if we go around, you can just say your name and what you do.
Sure. Tim Land, Willoughby City Engineer, also CP Consultant.
Jack Orphan, WPCC Superintendent.
John Hall, WPCC Assistant Superintendent.
Rich Palmisano, Willoughby Service Director.
Michael Semick, East Lake City Council at Large.
Angela Schmidt, East Lake Council at Large.
Jason Katsunik, East Lake City Council, Ward 3.
Dave Spotman, East Lake City Council, Ward 4, and West Hudson.
Alyssa Moran, East Lake Council at Large. Christy Sievers, Ward 1, Willoughby.
Tom Whiter, East Lake City Engineer, CT. Michael Brooks, WPCC Maintenance Supervisor.
Novak, City Willoughby, Clerk of Council.
Bob Carr, Ward 4, City Council, Willoughby.
Very good. Okay, with that all said, I'm going to turn everything over to Mr. Gorka and have at it.
All right. We're going to review the executive summary in your book. So if you open up to page 5 and you follow along. At the top we have extra executive summaries we can hand out. If you don't have one, try to go through them rather quickly. Just a little explanation. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask at any time. This is an open forum with interactive dialogue, hopefully. We'll start off with item number 1. We continue to operate within our NPDS permit limits. We had relatively insignificant violations. I think there was maybe 2, and they're minor things. Considering all the things we monitored for, the plant is well run. As always, excellent staff, and they're very attentive to everything that needs to be attended to make sure the plant runs efficiently and effectively.
Thank you. You're starting late on.
Item number 2 is the average daily flow. Last year was like 6.2 million, which is, we're in that range. We're usually around 6.5 million since last expansion, 1986. So we're close to our average. We were actually, 6.1% lower than the average flow since the expansion in '88. Item number 3 is something we did last year. Last year it seemed like we were continually doing new things. In this case, we lost our no exposure for stormwater. After an inspection, the EPA came and gave us a whole lot of things that we just could not meet. And so we ended up developing a stormwater pollution prevention plan. Considerable time was invested by all staff in creating the plan, getting it up and running and implementing. So that's what part of what we did last year. Enhancing enhancement project, there were only 2 because of it. Finally, we're done with it. I want to say I'm very happy with the results of the capacity enhancement project. All the engineering, all the SCADA, all the work, all the integration has worked flawlessly. I mean, this is amazing that we've got it implemented and working the way it's all intended. So last year we only had 2 bypass events. And then we had 2 events where we would have bypassed in the past, and we avoided them entirely. Altogether, 10.4 million gallons of sewage did not go into the environment because of the capacity enhancement project. And last year was actually a dry year. So this year we expect significantly more events. We already are in a few events where we haven't bypassed. It really is amazing how well it works, and it was money well spent. So we keep off the EPA's radar with not having bypass events. Item number 5 is we started transportation of our biosolids. We'll actually talk about that a little more on item number 3 on the agenda. But there again, another thing that consumes a great deal of our time with making the transition from Quasar hauling our sludge to us hauling our own sludge, getting the right people in place, getting the equipment in place, getting all the approvals, getting the approvals to buy stuff. It's an incredible time thing. But we implemented that, and it is going quite well. Item number 6 is, along with the plant operations, we have always had this thread of additional toxicity sampling, and we've been doing it with the fishies. You guys talk about the fishies and that die when, our effluent, when you use certain concentrations. We have different programs that we were asked to do, and we're successfully meeting them. We are not a ammonia reducing plant, and everything that we do to reduce our toxicity keys on 8 parts per million of ammonia and being below that. And we are achieving that by and large in the percentage of time that they want us to do it currently. I say currently because who knows what the EPA decides what they want you to do in the future. But as it is now, we are meeting those toxicity limits. I'm confident we will meet the imposed limits that are going to take over in October without any issue. I think we can handle it. But I only bring this up to belabor it is because if the EPA gets more stringent on it, we do not reduce ammonia. We're not designed to do that. If we had to do that by design, quite expensive to retrofit the plant into a nighttime plant. So that I always want to make you guys aware of that. Item number 7 is like a checklist of what we had in our last permit. So October 1st of 2020 is when it became effective. And I'll just kind of go through these and just say where we are with them. The first one is that we had to initiate construction of the capacity enhancement project. We did that. Second one is we had to complete it. We also did that on June 22nd of 21. And then no later than June of 21, the Waverly Relief Sewer Phase 2 had to have a PTI installed or turned into the EPA. And that was, we also met that, actually, East Lake met that. That's their baby. And no later than June 30th of 21, we were going to, we did first, no later than December 31st, we shall complete construction of the Waverly Relief Sewer this year. Or last year, 22, East Lake was well aware that they didn't, have such issues trying to meet that deadline between construction and, So we applied for a permit modification when it became evident that we weren't going to meet the timeline. EPA is very stringent on the timelines that they give you, and they want to make you, once again, through tons of paperwork to make sure to let them know why you're not going to meet your timeline, and then again have them give us a permit modification, go through all that paperwork that the EPA does to create a modification to your permit so that you could change a date. And I've discussed it with the EPA, saying there's got to be a better way to do this when you're going to miss the deadline. And all the hoops we had to jump through to make that happen. At any rate, they did, at year end, they had not given us the permit mod hadn't been formally approved, but it was in early January with a end construction date of November 1st for Waverly. The engineers want to say anything about it? Got on time, we're moving along.
It'll be close, they're gonna start here in about a month.
Okay. So we told them that's what we were gonna, was gonna happen. So no later than December 31 of 23, we have to put in an approvable PTI for the East Island Equalization Basin, also known as the Lakeshore East EQ Basin. I think everybody's aware of that. We just did something with the engineering costs, having some access of funding there. But there again, one of those things I'm not confident we'll meet that timeline, but as the engineers wade into this, as we get going through this year, we can also put in a permit mod to try to move that back if we have to. Involved in that though, we got a federal earmark, and discuss that maybe a little bit later, the $3.5 million. And at the time of this writing, we were soliciting qualifications for engineering, design, and construction services. But since then we have awarded that to an engineering firm, CT Consultants. So the other item, by December 31st of 24, we should have completed construction of the EQ tank, the Lake Shore East. Hopefully. It is just a big swimming pool kind of thing. Hopefully it'll go that quick. No later than December 31st of this year, we have to submit post-close construction monitoring plans, so we incorporate all these different aspects of things that we've been building, see how well they're going. We're actually already doing that with capacity enhancement, tracking how well all of that improvement is doing in conjunction with the other stuff that we have out there, like Clinton EQ. And then by the end, every June 30th, we have to give them an annual report on how we're moving along on all these different projects. Item number 8, the satellite sewer discharge control program. I just want to remind everybody, all the communities that come to us, we're not in charge of any collection systems, you are. And this is the mechanism that we have to make sure you guys continue, which we will be East Lake, Pine, and Timberlake, continue to do all your O&M that you need to do on your sewers, and have the right people in place to do it, and report any water and basement incidences, any sanitary sewer overflows. All that should be reported to WPCC, because we are responsible to report all of that. Item number 9 is, for the first time in a long time, the EPA conducted a pre-treatment compliance inspection, and our program was found to be adequate. You will never get them to say anything more than that. But Matt, we have a new guy in charge there, and he gets along with them great. And I don't know, they're revamping the whole thing, rebuilding bridges. It's awesome. He's just taking the program to new levels. In there, and we talk about the revenue generated, 201,000 last year. I wouldn't doubt that we do 300 this year, because I mean he's hunting down every source of surcharges in the city, in both cities. I always think it was amazing is, given all the industrial, commercial, if you think about all that's in these two cities, and all the testing that we do, only 7 violations of sewer use ordinance. That's incredible. It really is. I mean, it's just general compliance everywhere. And most of the times things don't work out because something in there is broke. And we found it.
Is there any repeat customers?
Not usually. Usually it's something as simple as a pH probe went bad on one of their, batching tanks that was buffer in there. It's usually stuff like that. We don't have any bad actors. We don't have people want to resist. And if there are any people that just don't know that they're not doing stuff right, they all end up doing it right. It's not like they threaten to go somewhere else or anything. They just end up spending the money to do what's the right thing to do. Treatment's everywhere, so that you can't run from it, no matter where you go.
What are the violations?
It's usually a pH or metals violations, and based on, you guys just did surcharges, but we need to do local limits. We're waiting for the EPA approval on that still. It's been like over a year and a half or 2 years. But those are metals limits, and it might be your zinc is parts per million. Somebody will have a 3.7 versus a 3.5 is our limit. Violation, violation's a violation. You have to report it, you have to do all the things to correct it.
Now, do they get fined also?
We try not to do that, only if there's, if there would be continued non-compliance.
Okay.
Most places are surcharged, but if you get a metals violation, just stop. We want you to stop. And if you're going to do anything and it involves money, we'd rather have you put that money into the system to fix it. Item number 10 is maintenance activities. Last year was like the first time the maintenance really didn't take on anything big, because we didn't have any maintenance guys. We were all doing all these other things. And somewhere in there, just kind of dovetails into number 11, one of our maintenance guys left, and we didn't get him replaced. It took forever. Last year was the year of no employees, so we had all this paperwork and all this stuff to do, and not enough people to do it. It seemed like we were throwing all the vacation time all of everybody gets, and there's like nobody there half the time. It was a challenging year, I'll say. But at the end of last year, if you remember, we had 3 people retire, and so we started the year with 14 people running that place. That total, 14 people, took forever. It seemed like all we did there, all year was interview, hire, move people around. It was just endless. And we're even still to the same point again. Started the year with only one guy in the lab. I'm back to ending the year with one guy in the lab. We still have only one guy in the lab, maybe till April. It's been between nobody being interested and doing office associate. We couldn't even replace Diana until we didn't get anybody in place till the end of June. Like half a year. It was just challenging all the way around. So in there we're getting close. We're getting back to, we're hopefully getting back to full staff ranks, and we can go full speed ahead. We do have enough maintenance guys now though. That was all part of, we talked about it too, is adding them to additional maintenance guys so we could drive the trucks.
How many people is considered full staff?
Don't know. I think our O&M manual originally designed by CT back in 1986 had us with 31, 32 people.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't, we've been, well, I don't know, since I started, I think we had 29, and we've been treating people ever since, until recently. And now we're at 17, 18 level is,
Has technology eliminated some of the jobs?
yes, that took out half the operations. We used to have dual operators back in the day, and we went to one single man shifts, put in a bunch of technology to make their job easier so they could, we had to do virtual tours around the plant because we had a camera system installed, but that cost us like $40,000. But then you can sit in the room and look everywhere around the whole plant. They don't need to walk around. And then all this data feeds them back all the information. So you really, technology does help a lot, in that regard. And it was just getting right size with people. So moving on, number 12, always amazing to me, we're so safety conscious, and Mike Hyde, who's here, is like leading the charge on that again, with even getting newer and better equipment, making sure that we have fall protection going in the EQ tanks and every aspect of it. And we're very proactive. Somebody sees something on tape, we just take care of it. We don't wait for a meeting. We don't fill out a form. We just deal with it. And I think that's why we hardly had any incidents at all. We had none last year. I think it's been 2 years running now. And usually the only thing that ever happens, somebody slips in the parking lot getting out of their car. Item number 13 is the rehab. So we have all these EQ tanks. It bring it to mind again. We have 2 underground EQ tanks, one right out front of this building, Lakeshore West. We're going to start calling it in Dalton. We had some preliminary design. We need to retrofit them to be cleaning systems. CT did preliminary design, very expensive back then to get it done. So we decided to break it up into pieces. The replacement of the siphon was going to be the first one. We ended up not doing that as a result of the Lakeshore East EQ tank. We made that bigger. We could take that volume of flow over there and relegate the siphon to a surge chamber. In the meantime, Mike, back in before this last summer, the year before, they started cleaning and gutting it. We got it all cleaned and gutted. It's almost all done, I think.
Yep.
Last few pipes. And so it's just a big surge tank. So that one's done, but the other 2 will, at some point, will be back. Somebody will be back the next 2, 3, 4 years to start taking those on. So I'll discuss them a little bit more later on. Site tank, I already talked about that. So budget, number 14. Budget request this year is like 4.1 million, it's about 1.5% higher than last year's adopted budget of 1.4, or 4.1, sorry about that. And 22 expenditures were 3.955, about 5.1% higher than 21. But don't be worried, it was due to an increase in the debt service and all those retirements. A lot of sick time went out the door with all those people being here 30, 40 years. Item number 15, I always like to point out, started pointing out anyways, because we never really had big debt load before, but we do now. The budget request is, and I want to tell you what the size of that impact on our budget going forward. The current debt service is $818,000 a year. Our year-end debt is like $9.7 million. We don't anticipate any increase this year because we're really just gonna be designing stuff. We're not building anything. So that'll probably come in the following year, the year thereafter. But keep in mind the current WPCC interest rate is 2.56. So your carrying cost for $1 million worth of work, which is coming with the Lakeshore East, over 20 years is $64,000 per million. That's the revenue you need to cover for a year. So these numbers always seem big, but they're manageable. And we'll get something later on to give some perspective. Flow meters, we're maintaining those. We're always in about that same range, 59, 41, 58, 42. Going to continue to do that. We had 2 replacement projects in the design phase last year. One is the WPCC water main replacement project. Anyone? Anywhere? No? Good news is, and I'm very optimistic now because it's been going for 5, maybe this year 6 for the water main project, is that we got an OPWC grant, thanks to Tim and his hard work, for $190,000, so free money. So we got free money to put in. Maybe that'll help. It
was worth the wait.
There you go. So we're hoping to have something that we can't exercise the contract until after July 1st. So we do have some time to design. Kim just told me that it will take nothing to design a water line. Item number 2 is a belt filter press. We authorized that last year. There again, it was the year of the grant. Like I said, paperwork, and we got $200,000 of free money to put in the belt press. It's on the same timeline, and right now we're doing some vetting of equipment, trying to determine which one we want. That's leaning towards what we had before, but we'll see what Mike says about that. It's going to be yours to deal with for the next 20 years. Item number 18, one new capital project. It's in the funding initiation phase, and that's Lakeshore East Basin. We've talked about that a few times already. We got 3 we had to wait on the earmark that didn't come till March, and we got $3.5 million. We got earmark, but we still have to apply for it, so that was on hold until mid-October, until the US EPA pushed out the guidance on how to apply for the grant. Ton of paperwork, there's just a ton of paperwork involved in it, but we're $3.5 million is worth it. So got the engineers ready to roll. Engineers probable construction cost was 7.7, but that was back before all this inflation and steel prices went up and everything else. We will see. So hopefully the $3.5 million didn't get eaten up by all the price increases since November of 21. No new capital requests. And so item number 20 is the pending future projects, and that's where we were talking about Lakeshore and Dalton. If we see something somehow going by that's going to be cost effective, we may do something and go after it. If we can get a grant again for $400,000 or $500,000 or something like that, it definitely maybe worth pursuing to offset those retrofits. But sooner or later, the Lakeshore West tank and the Dalton tank have to be retrofitted. Item number 21 is grant requirements. We really had kept it in here because all our grants, the life expectancy had gone, but now we got new grants again. We're going to actually have 3 of them. So once you take a grant, you have to guarantee to maintain it throughout its useful life. And that is executive summary. At this point, I want to turn over to either Tim, Tom, with the Lakeshore East EQ Basin project update. I know we hit on most of the points. Is there anything new? Anything you guys know that you're doing? Did you give it a job number yet? Stuff like that?
Almost.
I know we're right into getting going with it, really.
Yeah, first step will be survey and geotechnical engineering. So we have to emerge with a geotechnical firm, CPL, so that'll be in-house. So it'll be efficient. write that down for Elisa, what I just said, if it doesn't pick up on the microphone.
Thanks, Tim.
So that's about it. It is a tight schedule. There's, a lot has to be done.
The paperwork is voluminous.
Paperwork, right. So we have extra, requirements through design because of the federal grant, so we have all of the rules, so, that come with the federal grant. So that'll be a big piece, but we can do that, concurrent with the design effort. Not much more to say. It's a big project, it's a big hole in the ground. We have a good pattern in the, Quentin basin that works great, so, this is just bigger, so it's a little different, the hydraulics a little different, but the cleaning mechanism and things like that will just be following that same pattern.
Oh, yeah. Quentin, by the way, it works great. That's like, nobody needs to even go in that, it's perfect.
So the only thing better would be if this was the exact same size, so it's, similar, but it is,
A little bit bigger.
50% bigger.
So what we're hoping to do, just for information purposes, is try to use this one as storage like we're using Quentin. As it is now, we're getting these results or stuff that doesn't even show up as a bypass at our place because we're storing it in Quentin because it's not being used. So we have the ability to store it there during wet weather. So we're developing this wet weather program, one of the evil master plan that Chip Sales and I used to talk about, of where storing the water where the rain isn't throughout the city, because we'll have EQ tanks that are dry, and we're bypassing at the plant. So why can't we stop the water there and move it to different spots? So we've been using Quentin quite successfully. When our intentions are to use this site too, in the same way, with 1.3 million capacity.
Jeff, would it be fair to say, I think so, that because of the way you decided to operate these bases and the system in general, you may actually prevent having to invest additional capital dollars in some things that the SSES called for. So this is it's not just an operational thing. This is a big money-saving deal that you implemented by operating the plant the way you do and those bases the way you do as storage or whatever. So it's not just an operational scheme. This could have big dollar implications in savings down the line.
And I think it could, because there are, if people look at, don't remember the SSES, it was a 30, 40-year plan. There are EQ tanks, like 3 more out there,
Yes.
that we may not have to do. If we're not bypassing, why would we do them? If we could eliminate the bypassing, with the exception of some epic rain events, why build them? Sort of thing. That's where we have to go after discussions with DP, but that's also why they put in our permit. We have to evaluate everything that we're doing. How are we doing? How's it working? I think we're headed in a really good direction. They may not force us to do anything in the next 5-year cycle, which will be 25 for the next permit cycle.
Thank you.
That's it. That's the update on number 2. Item number 3, I know Willoughby was heavily involved in the in-house biosolids transportation. We went there, trying to bring everybody up to speed. I think they explained pretty well in the annual report, but I'll go over it briefly and try anyways. We put the Quasar was hauling our sludge, and they were taking it and making biogas out of it, but at some point it wasn't cost effective to them, and they started hauling it to a landfill, and they were losing money on it, and they were not happy. We put it out to bid because we ran out of options. We could not renew the existing. They didn't want to do it anyways, I'm sure of that. So we put out the bid, and their bids came in. They were huge. It was just huge. And so, almost on a napkin, you could go like, yeah, we could save a ton of money here if we do this in-house. If we have guys who know how to drive trucks, all we need is a truck. All we need is a trailer. We said within 2-3 days, we put together a working plan, and then we started and then we even sat down and did we had maybe 4 or 5 sessions of what if this, what if that fails, what if this guy's sick, what if, we went through all the scenarios to cover ourselves to get to the point where we go we think we can do this. And I'm glad that we were able to convince everybody, members of council, and my boss, that we could do this, and gave us the opportunity, because I have so much faith in my staff, and I know that when they say they can do stuff, they can. And so, in front of you kind of is where we are with, the in-house biosolids savings is on front. So what I tried to put together, everybody knows that I'm kind of the money conscious and like to keep track of everything. So we had our startup costs, ended up being about $210,000. And then there were the annual costs in personnel costs that are going to be associated with it. We ended up adding, we have a driver. I think the time that he's going to spend, they're not there that long, but I rounded up 2.5 hours. Round trip, typically even in the winter so far, we haven't had even less than that. But that's the time I'm going to allocate to this process, to this project. Plus his benefits, his fringe benefits are 45%, so that's where the cost lay out there for the maintenance guys to try to make it make sense to everyone. And also the increase in their pay, because they went from mechanic 1 to mechanic 2, because now they have operations and the CDL. Once again, going back to where I was, it's very complicated. It was very long summer, lots of negotiations. The union had to create jobs. You had to get the councils to agree to the jobs. It seemed like we were constantly just doing something, paperwork-wise, doing things. At any rate, this laid out is the actual cost, including the lab analysis. Our insurance is prorated. Roughly, we started September 12th, so about 3 2/3 months in is what you're looking at for my cost, fuel cost, any maintenance costs to track every single thing we put in these trucks, truck and trailer. And so far, O&M at the end of the year was $22,500. And below that is the projected contract transport cost. So that's the other page. We are saving roughly $24,000 doing it ourselves. Saving, that's what we're saving. So offsetting that roughly $6,000 a month with O&M costs. That's labor costs, that's everything rolled in, gas, insurance, everything. So we're making about $18-19 a month. So I figured just that where we're sitting by August, we're broke even and everything's, we're making roughly $18,000-19,000 a month. From then on to the next 4+ years of the contract. That being said, if you notice our labor costs and the mechanic and especially going, why we got a new cab? Why is it so expensive? Because it wasn't a new cab, it was a used cab. And it's an over-the-road cab. It does not like the landfill. We're having issues with that. So this can jump in anytime you want. So we actually looked into getting a new landfill cab. We have a brand new trailer that's going to last 20 years. This cab is going to last us 20 years. It's only doing one thing. It's driving to a landfill and back.
How often do you do that?
Once a day. Only 5 days a week. Yeah.
So when this vehicle was purchased, this is a used over-the-road truck, and it was in fantastic shape. We were under a large time constraint to buy this because the contract was ended. So the vehicle maintenance department went through several options of used vehicles. We settled on this one. This is a fine truck. There's really nothing wrong with the truck, but it's not built for going into a landfill. We've had numerous problems over there with flat tires, and it being so low to the ground, it's easily stuck there, and it's not built for that kind of activity. What we're looking for is what the trucks that you see on the road commonly hauling all the salt, all those dump trailers. That is what is necessary for this kind of job. We've got a couple of quotes, and this is basically a custom-built truck that they had put together a package for from Valley Freightliner, and the quote came in. Actually, there was another brand new truck that someone was going to hand over. Availability was right now, but it was more than what we needed. We would have to remove parts from it to make it work. This one, once it's built, is everything that they would need to do this. And this truck is coming in at $176,000 right now. The truck that we have right now, we can resell. And, I don't know the timeline on this vehicle. I do know that we just recently had our new used truck repaired. It's an automatic, truck. It's not a standard stick shift. It's a different beast. And there was a problem with the clutch and the transmission. We've already had that repaired. The mechanics are worried, that the continual wear and tear on this vehicle is going to add up. They would like, we're looking to replace it.
So in the packet, there's the truck. If we order it to get it allocation, I don't know if everybody knows about how the vehicles work anymore. Everybody, your dealer gets an allocation of 10 trucks. If you don't get in there, you don't get one. You gotta wait for the next allocation, whatever that might happen. In this case, our mechanic has a guy that who's selling trucks who's willing to sell him one of his allotment. You could sell a truck to somebody for $400 or to sell for $176, but we have to commit to it. And then he won't even be able to order it until October.
Right.
We might not even have this until a year after that. But that's how the auto industry is anymore. So we're trying to get out front of this, and that really is planned. We'll cover this cost in 10, of 172, we'll cover it in 10 months. We'll be paid for. So, and that would get us to, Mike having a brand new truck for the next 20 years. We should have, minimal issues with it. Unless Vince gives you trouble. Or driver.
And this Western Star that you guys are seeing was created by the Vehicle Maintenance Department with the understanding of what the truck was gonna do. So this is what they have software for diagnostics, troubleshooting, transmission, all that stuff. So this is tailored to be not only good for us, but good for them as well.
Yeah, he points out a really important thing with the current vehicle that we have. We keep having to take it to people to fix it. And our garage can't do it because we don't have any of the software programs or anything to fix it. So, that's the added cost to it. One of those unforeseen things when we bought it, but Rich said we had to get something and it was the right price, and we can still sell it. I'm convinced we can't sell it for close to what we bought it for, so. And then now we're having something new. We have a new trailer, and this truck would be plug and play. I've learned way more about trucks than I want to this summer, and how you can't just hook them up, and all the different things you have to add to them to make them work together. But the one we've got a quote for, we'll just plug right into our new trailer. And I want to say we've had like 0 incidences going to landfill. If anybody wants to do a ride along, you can take pictures if you want. You drive into a sludge truck to a landfill.
Everybody should go to landfill.
Yeah, everybody should. You
No
should
doubt
go.
about it. It's really interesting.
It is. It was crazy. And as big as the truck is, you get it is an experience. It really is. And if you go with Vince, then you all
The entertainment value.
The entertainment, the exposition, yeah. So we're looking to do that. That's all we have. Any comments? Anybody?
How often is the current truck needing repair or service?
When did it go down last time? Now it's got in mid-January, it had we call it a poop spook in its transmission. It would just stop, it would lock up, it would just stop working and shut down. And everybody would look at it and it just started working again. And so we drove it, and we had to get Ohio Bulk in the haul, haul for us for, 2 weeks?
3 weeks.
That was the most major repair on
Yeah.
it, was that recently. Other than that, I think it's been mostly flat tires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it rides low, it gets easy, because it's not made for a landfill. But he doesn't care. I think would be good. I think it's worth the investment. And me, I won't spend money there. this is a good thing. This is, what we did here is really a good thing. It's gonna save all the ratepayers benefit immensely from that. Moving on. Item number 4, we'll leave you with something. So in the middle of summer, all this, I received the cost of clean water index from NACWA. We're members, we're not really members, but I sort of get the stuff from them for free. And they periodically, I want to say every 3 years, they do, financial surveys. I participate in them, and they give you an idea of like where you are in the industry in the United States. So really just to put together really something quick and dirty. The average, we're region 5, where Ohio is, and the average cost. In region 5 for a single family resident paid for wastewater services for a year is $518. In our region. That's the average cost. Now let that sink in a little bit. So I go like, oh, what's our service connections? So we got Lake County giving us our service connections, just residential, and the residential value of water, and the average user, it's just simple math in the end, and I guess our average bills are about $329 for sewer. I don't know, I don't live in Willoughby, so I don't see a bill, but hopefully it's about what you think you're paying. If that's the case, I mean, we're well under the region average and the national average. So it just gives us, I wanted to just put us in perspective, not that, you think we're expensive or anything like that, but it's always good to know where you are in relationship to the rest of the country. So another one that they put out was the next section was the average O&M cost per million gallons treated. They used to do this more often, and they sort of stopped it for a while, it seemed like, or didn't publish it. And so I did some math with us and our debt, what our cost. And I didn't even do O&M. I did debt service. I did replacement expense. I did our entire costs, our entire budget. And the national average is roughly $3,000 for MGD per million gallons treated, and we're at $17.39. So this is good news. Bad news if the EPA is breathing down your neck, going like, you better build stuff, because although you have plenty of space, because you're well below the average. But I would just point this out, give us some perspective where we're at, so you can feel a little better about the money we do spend. So we're not out of line. We're not doing stuff crazy here. I just gave you like some cover sheets of the NACWA things, but in there is where I got what's on the sheet. But if you look these up, if you go look them up, you'll get the entire report, the sticker, and all that. For some of us, it's interesting reading. But if you want to look more into it, they go in more depth of all sorts of, nuances of what you do, on average. But it's the cost of clean water. And, I think it's a noble profession. We're doing it for 42 years, trying to do our best. I really am excited for what we're doing. We had a heck of a year. Action-packed would be we just went from thing to thing to thing. It seemed like it was just nonstop. Trying to see. But this year should be a little more relaxing, maybe. Take on a few more projects. Now that you have more maintenance staff. Right. Good question. Comments, concerns, anything you want us to do? Really? Eat more pizza. That's all I have.
All right, anybody else have any comments or concerns? No? Okay, I'd like to close the meeting for the WPCC 2022 budget report. Thanks, Jeff. Good job, buddy. Thank you. It's already done, right? All over the table.
was it?
But that's,
Who was it?
the city as well.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing I did,